Okay, so no countdown because I forgot to do that, and it's fine.
It's
Um,
Friday.
but yeah, it's Friday. It's been kind of a crazy week. We've been busy with a lot of different things around here at Reclaim, um, but yeah, how are you doing, Amanda?
Doing good. Um, it's been a week both at Reclaim and at home for us, dealing with, you know, fresh baby and daycare germs. So
Yeah,
welcoming the weekend.
same. Same. Been daycare germs here too, just not for a fresh baby. So, um, in our case, a 4-year-old. So, but um, yeah, we are we're here to talk about Pressbooks on Reclaim Hosting. You and I have, I'm going to call it a storied history, maybe overselling it,
Okay.
of looking at Pressbooks on Reclaim Hosting. Um, but I was just looking through our PeerTube, and we had a, I guess, 4-part stream. In my head it was 3, but we did 4 parts on this. And I see Pilot, you're welcome to join us. And and Hey
Sorry, I'm
Pilot.
late. Sorry, I'm running a little late this morning,
Oh
but
yeah, no problem.
wanted to sit
Problem.
on
This is
this.
informal. This is Friday hangout time.
Oh, I'm banking on that.
Yeah. I forgot to do the countdown, so it is what it is.
Yeah, no, it's Friday.
So I was saying, Man and I were talking about, we've done a few things on Pressbooks before on informal streams, and I think we learned a lot from these. I mean, I certainly did, about kind of what was required to have all of the Pressbooks functionality,
Mhm.
including import and export stuff. There was a lot of noodling and around at the command line and figuring out, what did what.
Yeah.
And since then, I've started doing more work on our actual Pressbooks installer that we offer to a few domain of one's own schools that want it. So I've, between these streams and the installer, become much more familiar with Pressbooks, and there's a lot of stuff in here that um, I don't, I've found easier ways to do, basically. So, um, and basically what's amounted to this is, over the last, I don't know, month or so, I've worked on this brand new article that we have called Manually Installing Pressbooks. It's got a super catchy name. We're all about the clickbait help center articles here.
I think the best
Um,
clickbait is good SEO.
yeah. So basically, this just walks you through everything you'd need to know about running Pressbooks on either shared hosting, domain of one's own, Reclaim Cloud, or upcoming Reclaim Press. We don't have like Reclaim Press specific stuff in here, but I'll be able to pretty easily adapt the Reclaim Cloud stuff as soon as we have that service launched, because a lot of it is very similar. So basically, this goes through and says, all right, like, first thing you need to do is you need to know what version of WordPress you need and what version of PHP you need. This is something Amanda and I learned probably the hard way, um, on the last streams. Is
We
it
did.
is very picky about those two things. And to be fair, like, they say that in their in places in their documentation, but it is more picky than most other like WordPress plugins. And probably for good reason. They do a lot of modification of the WordPress dashboard and things. So you need to use the versions they suggest. And we go through, I go through, okay, well, how do we do this? How do we install a blank WordPress site and PHP? How do we do the themes and plugins? And then we talk about server dependencies in this article, which is specifically a Reclaim Cloud only thing. So you can run Pressbooks on shared hosting, but you won't be able to do some imports and most export functionality. So you won't be able to make PDFs, EPUBs, open documents, which is like LibreOffice and OpenOffice compatible, and some of the specialized XML formats are also not available there. But if you just want to make a book and publish the web version of it, it'll work on shared hosting just fine. So, but then we've got a section on the Reclaim Cloud specific stuff. So I'm not going to go through all this because we're going to show it, right? But yeah, this stream is kind of about, hey, we've got this new resource. I think if you compare it to what we Amanda and I were looking at, pressbooks.org has a user guide on installing it manually, and obviously they have to gear this towards like you could be hosting this anywhere. So it's accurate, but it's a little complicated, and we wanted to make something that was a little bit easier to follow for Reclaim folks. So yeah. I also found a lot of steps in here that I'm not sure are necessary anymore. I think they maybe just have them in there for safety, but there's a lot of things in here you just don't need to do. So
yeah, I love that that you've been able to take a fresh look at these instructions and audit them in a way for like actual use case, present use case, I feel, because there's, like you're saying, there's lots of things have changed in the time since these were written. And that's the beauty of being able to go in and work on it kind of openly.
Well, and again, I don't want to be I don't want to oversimplify. Part of the reason we can do this is because we know the environment that you would be installing it on Reclaim Cloud or Reclaim Hosting, shared hosting service, right? So I can make some assumptions. For instance, there's a whole section here, and this is of how to define where various server dependencies are installed. And I found that if you install them in the default locations that Pressbooks recommends, then you don't even need to put this stuff in WP config. You can just skip that whole part. It will just automatically find them. So when I'm building the instructions for Reclaim Cloud, I can just make it so that we do install them in the default locations, and then you don't need to go dig into WP config, and you don't need to do anything there. In fact, I'm really kind of happy to say that this entire tutorial requires no command line usage and no text file editing at all.
Oh, that's ideal.
That's super cool. Yeah, so let's get to it, I guess. So we're going to install it on my shared hosting account and on Reclaim Cloud simultaneously. I forgot that I'm actually going to delete this. I was thinking about having a WordPress site ready to go, but I'd rather actually show front to back the whole thing on stream. So first thing we need to do, according to the instructions, is find the required WordPress version and PHP version. So the best way to do this is just go to their GitHub page and right on the README file, there's a requirements section. So it says Pressbooks works with PHP 8.1 and WordPress 6.2.2. So lower versions are not supported. I would recommend going exactly with the version they specify. Sometimes you can use a newer version of WordPress than is specified, but I think that's kind of living on the edge. That can get problematic. The good news is it will tell you. It'll say like, hey, this does not work, and it will actually deactivate the plugin. The bad news is the plugin is deactivated, so your entire Pressbooks site from the front end is like not visible anymore. So it's not, you don't want to do that. Just use the version they specifically say. I will also say, if you happen to be doing this with an older version of Pressbooks, like say you're like, all right, 6.15.0, that's the latest version. I want to go and find out that information for an older versions like 6.9.2. The best way I can find to do this is to literally just download that old version, the zip file, and open it up. And in there is the main plugin file. I'm just going to show this on GitHub, but it'll be in there, this pressbooks.php file. And on lines 9 and 10, it'll have the requirements there as well. and I do mention this in the article. So if you happen to be looking at like, oh, what is the version I need for 6.3 or whatever, you can find that information. Unfortunately, I don't really have that listed by version anywhere else, but it's fine. That's one way to do it. So we need 8.1 and 6.2.2. So step 2, we need to set the PHP version and install a blank WordPress multi-site. So we're going to do this on Cloud first. And that's just because Cloud does take like 4-ish minutes to install a blank WordPress site. And it's actually a little bit faster on shared hosting because on Cloud, we're making an entire environment and everything. So, yep.
And there's
so
more dependencies we're adding in Cloud too, right?
Well, this
That we're
won't
able to.
actually do the dependencies. The dependencies will come later.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just the nature of containerized hosting, basically. It takes longer, where you can think of like when shared hosting is installing something, it's just downloading some files and creating a database.
Mhm.
When Cloud is installing something, it's basically creating an entire Linux environment, installing all of the things into that Linux environment, kind of. And then it's downloading some files and creating a database. So it's just got more work to do.
So it's like fully making a server.
Oh, it
Like a
totally is. Yeah.
Tiny
Yes.
server. Okay.
Yeah.
So 4 minutes,
Mhm.
reasonable.
It's pretty reasonable. Yeah. So marketplace, and then we're going to search for WordPress. I'm going to use a standalone kit. I will say I've only tested this on the standalone kit. I have not done it with like multi-region or anything. I wouldn't recommend that personally. I don't think that'll be necessary for most people's Pressbooks instances. We run some really large sites on the standalone kit, like really, I think possibly some of the largest WordPress multi-sites in the world, at least in the higher ed space. So I'm not going to say the most, but some of the most. So we need to pick our PHP version from here. So we're going to pick 8.1. We also need to check this multi-site network box so that we get a multi-site. Again, this is listed in the thing. And then we hit install. That's kind of it for this first step. I'm going to give it a name of PB. Yeah, how about that? Let's install it in Canada. Why not? And then I'm just going to dismiss that for now. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on shared hosting. So over here, if I go to my cPanel, then WordPress, install. Oh, I'm just now noticing we actually have a few comments in the Reclaim TV chat. Cool.
Oh yeah. Shout out to Stephen and Eric. Hey guys.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna pick a domain for it to go on. So I just have a demo subdomain that I use for all kinds of stuff. So I'm gonna do that. I'm actually gonna put this in a subdirectory because I have a site at the top of it. It's a beautiful site with a picture of my dog from a long time ago.
Looks like such a baby.
Yeah, she's like 2 in this picture, 3 maybe. Anyway, so we're gonna install this in demo.jaden.me/pressbooks. We do need to pick the version, right? We need 6.2.2. We're gonna get to the version stuff in Reclaim Cloud in a second. And accept this license. I actually recommend on shared hosting to hit do not automatically update. I almost never ever recommend this otherwise, but we don't want Installatron to automatically move us up to WordPress 6.3.1 or whatever, 3.1, because it may not be compatible. So when you want to do updates on your Pressbook site and shared hosting, you'll just have to go into Installatron and hit the little update button when you're ready. So these other options are okay, because it's actually not going to touch the Pressbooks plugins and themes, because they're manual. I'm going to make an admin account. Okay. My Pressbooks site, just another Pressbooks site. Got to do it. Oldest joke in hosting. We need enable multi-site. So we do need to hit that box, and then we'll hit install. Okay, so that's going ahead right now. Our WordPress site on cloud is still going. See which one wins. I think shared hosting may still win, even though we gave it a cloud a head start, but that's okay.
I mean, InstallTron's just real fast. There's not a whole lot
Yeah.
you can do.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the beautiful thing about LampStack, right? Is that there's downsides, like the actual hosting experience is not always as fast, right? But it is efficient in that you get to host a lot of sites from one server, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
It's good at doing what it does.
For sure. Okay, so WordPress is installed here on shared hosting. We've got the right version. We do need to go check our PHP version. So I need to go into the multi PHP manager in cPanel. This is something we got to specify on cloud, and in shared hosting, we have to do it from this other tool. So we need 8.1. You can tell I was testing a lot. I've already set it to 8.1. I'm just going to do it again for the sake of the stream. It's not going to hurt anything. All right. So now that whole subdomain, including my Pressbooks site, is running PHP 8.1. If you have multiple sites on a subdomain that need different PHP versions, I'm not going to cover that in the stream here because we got a lot to cover in the next 40 minutes. But there are ways to do that. I'll just say there are ways to do that. It does require editing your htaccess files manually, though. Most of the time, we recommend here at Reclaim to separate things out onto different subdomains. It's just cleaner, and you get to use tools like this to set your PHP version. Okay, so let me go back to InstallTron here, and let's log into my WordPress site. Great. So we're good to go here. We have a clean WordPress site that's ready for us. Okay, and cloud is done. So here I'm going to need this password, and I'm going to log in with my email address. So let me go. There's the WordPress site. And if I log in right now, we're going to find that we're actually running the latest version of WordPress. It's small, so you probably can't read this, but it says version 6.3.1. We need 6.2.2. So we have to actually change our WordPress version. We now have an add-on to do this. This was not something that was built in before yesterday. So we're going to cross our fingers to make sure that I didn't make any mistakes. I will say I have tested this, but I've not shown it on a stream before. So we've got this new add-on here called replace/upgrade WordPress core files. And we're going to hit install. And then we're just going to tell it what version we want, 6.2.2. And we're going to hit install. And it's going to actually downgrade WordPress to 6.2.2. That's it. Let's refresh our page here. We may have to log in again. I guess not. And we are now on an older version of WordPress. So it says learn more about the 6.2.2 version. So cool. It's funny. I do have to upgrade the network, even it's technically a downgrade. But this is just a database updates that have to happen when you change WordPress versions. So I'll say not essential when there's literally no content on your site yet. But I'll also just go in, I'll hit update on this Akismet plugin. We're not really going to use it, but It's
Love that
there.
Hello Dolly's in there.
It's essential. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you run a WordPress site without it?
Mhm.
So we've got we are both at the same place here. So on both cloud and shared hosting, if you were happening to look at the instructions here, we've sort of left ourselves off in the same place. So now we just need to install the Pressbook themes and plugin. I would recommend just using the WordPress tools, the theme panel and the plugin page, theme page and plugin page to do this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the McClellan, which is the book theme, and Aldine, which is like the front end site theme. So I'm going to just download these. I'm actually going to clear out my downloads folder really quick because I probably have a bunch of old versions of the theme here.
I'm maybe about to just totally reveal my ignorance here. So these are the ones that are available through Pressbooks. Are there other Pressbooks official stuff? And also, are there other third-party stuff? Like,
there are some third-party themes for
Mhm.
Pressbooks books. I have not run into many of them, but yeah, I don't want to speak. I don't want to say anything wrong, but I've seen mostly a couple other schools that have done Pressbooks theme development.
Mhm.
There are also other themes from Pressbooks themselves. So I even say here, as well as any other book themes you would like to use, this is just linking to Pressbooks's repository on GitHub or organization on GitHub. And there are some other themes here. There are some that are no longer maintained, but do still work, like Austin Classic and Fitzgerald. There's Clark, Jacobs,
Yeah.
and Donham. We're just going to do the two required ones for now. But you could install all of these if you wanted to, the same way we're about to.
Mhm. In the chat, Ed says, by the way, that there used to be more contributors to sort of the open Pressbooks.
Yes, BC Campus is what I was thinking of. Yeah, and we actually still include the open textbook theme in our installer that some schools pay for, just because we have schools that use it, but it is no longer updated. So it's one of those things where like it works right now. I don't know how long it'll be maintained and will work in the future. But yeah, so we're gonna install those themes. This isn't like installing any other theme zip file. So which is to say, it's not in the theme repository. We have to upload the zip file, but it's not too hard to do. So I'm going to go here. This is my Reclaim Cloud site. We are going to add new, upload theme, browse. You can't see my browse window because I'm only sharing my
that's
browser tab.
The eternal pain of wanting to be like very like, no, this window and only this window, and then going, oh, but sometimes there's a pop-up or something.
But I trust you all. You just have to select the file. So we're not going to network enable this for now. We're going to go back to the themes page. It's not going to break anything if you do. It's just easier to not, because it's not going to fully work without everything else. So I did the Aldine theme. I'm also going to do the book theme, or McClellan.
Ed's also noting that McClellan incorporates a lot of stuff from Open Textbook.
Oh, cool.
Because it's in the newest version.
It will take a bit to install the book theme. The book theme it's a big theme. There's a lot going on in it. It's a lot of what Pressbooks is, right? So in terms of displaying content in the way that it does. So we've got our two required themes here. We're now going to do the plugin. And same kind of deal. We just need to go get the latest release from GitHub. Grab the zip file. Upload it.
In chat, Stephen asked where the zip files came from. You can get them through GitHub.
Yes, GitHub. They're linked to in the support doc that I'm following here. So Stephen, I'm going to link it in the chat here, just because you probably can't actually see the URL. But instructions and link to Pressbooks themes and plugin. So that'll be better to follow along with later. So, all right, so I got the plugin zip. I'm going to go to the plugins page in WordPress. Oh, I just realized I don't know if I demoed this properly, but make sure if you haven't done a lot with WordPress multisite, you need to be looking at the network admin, right? Because that's the only place that lets you install themes and plugins. The doc does mention this, but I didn't on the stream. So add new, upload plugin, browse, and I'm going to grab the Pressbooks zip file. This is just Pressbooks 6.15.0.zip and install it. The nice thing is this same process will work for upgrading later. So if you want to move, let's say in a month or two to a new version of Pressbooks and a new version of themes, you just do the same thing again. You just download the themes from GitHub. The same links that I linked to will work. And upload them. And when you upload them, WordPress will say, do you want to upgrade this plugin? And you say, yep. It's pretty slick. And like I said, it's nice because you don't have to do anything from the command line here. So we uploaded the Pressbooks plugin and now we're going to activate it. So I'm just going to hit the network activate button right here, as long as it's there. And it's actually going to automatically, in more recent versions of Pressbooks, it's actually going to automatically use the, it's automatically going to use the themes where necessary. It's just something that I found. I keep going to the wrong place. So if I go here, you'll notice that it says 2023 is enabled. It's not really true. So I can actually just go in and network enable McClellan and Aldine, but you don't even technically have to do that on the most recent versions of Pressbooks in my testing. So,
and for themes, because network enabling a plugin means that it becomes mandatory everywhere. For themes, network enabling them,
it's not quite the same thing.
Yeah.
But on Pressbooks, it's kind of managed for you. So on Pressbooks, there's a concept of the site theme, which is Aldine, and book themes, which would be McCullen and other ones you install. So the book themes become available to the site, to book maintainers to use. So if I just go here and to the front page, here we go. Here's my Pressbooks site. So this is on cloud. There's nothing here yet, obviously, but it's here. I'm going to do the same thing I just did on shared hosting really quick. So yeah, I should say really quick. It's a little slower on shared hosting because the uploading the themes takes a little bit longer, but it does work. So first I actually need to go to network admin themes, add new, upload, browse, Aldine. We'll grab the book theme.
It's always crazy to me how much you guys have just the Pressbook streams that you guys did. This just always kind of blow my mind.
In terms of how much we didn't know going into those streams?
In terms of how much you've done and in terms of how much you've learned.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the process, right? Like the whole point of those streams was like, we don't really know. Like Amanda has some experience using Pressbooks and I have really no experience with Pressbooks, but some experience with, WordPress basically. And let's figure out what we can figure out. And we got it working. So, in some ways this stream is like, hey, it's not quite a year ago, but it's almost a year ago. Since then, what have we learned and how can we make this easy? Right. So that's why I'm excited about this. This is kind of like payoff from those streams of like, all right, so that was, if anyone watched those, they were probably painful to watch, right? But
This is Taylor's redemption song.
yeah, yes.
I'm just hanging out.
Yeah.
Actually, I am going to take this opportunity to put in a plug for open publishing ecosystems because we're waiting for the upload to happen. We're going to be spending December talking about not so much Pressbooks because we have now at least 5 streams on Pressbooks.
Yeah.
But we're going to be talking about some other open publishing platforms also.
Yeah, we're excited about that. Still the details are kind of coming together on it and everything, but
yeah,
we'll have more information. And Artemis decided she wants to be on the stream.
Yes.
Hey,
Decided that by climbing up my jean leg, like my leg, which was painful. Hi.
But worth it. Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Special guest.
Yeah. All right. So we're in the same spot now on shared hosting and cloud. I feel like I should have thought of this better. It's probably a little confusing to be jumping back and forth between shared hosting and cloud, but you know, we didn't really feature shared hosting in our last streams much. So I want to show that, hey, here's what works and what doesn't work, you know, on both. Because that was definitely a question we got is like, okay, you did it on the cloud and that's cool, but like, what if I just want to have like 2 books on my shared hosting account, which I think is a completely valid question. So, all right. So we've got, if we go to our instructions, we've got completely all the way up to we're right at step 4 now. So basically on shared hosting, this is kind of where we're done. So there is, if I go to my shared hosting account here, I can go make a book. And if I make just a test book here, a cool book. Yeah, okay, so I was seeing some discussion about OJS, but I have seen a few shared hosting folks use OJS, but I personally don't have a lot of experience with it. I don't know, Pilot and Amanda, if you've used it at all, or even I don't really even know much about it, but I have seen people use it basically.
My open publishing experience is limited to what I've heard other people say for the most part.
No, I haven't used OJS personally. When I was in open publishing, Pressbooks was
the thing.
Mm-hmm. Cool. But yeah, Ed mentioned in the chat that it did come up during Reclaim Open, maybe by Kathleen. So yeah, if we don't have a plan to include OJS in the Flex course, but definitely something for us to revisit, especially since it seems like there's a couple people who know stuff about it.
Yeah, we have a lot of tools that we're featuring in the Flex course, possibly too many. And
too much is never enough.
So what we're kind of hoping to do, the sampling we have is like kind of out there. Like they're all very different use cases, sort of on purpose. So I do think it would be cool to take a look at OJS in the future, but I don't know that we'll be able to get to it in like a dedicated week in open publishing ecosystems. I do know that we do kind of have plans for the community chat that month to sort of pull in the stuff we're talking about with open publishing ecosystems and kind of make it part of the course a little bit. And so that could be a kind of a nice time to talk about like, okay, well, what about the tools we didn't cover? You know, Pressbooks will be featured in there for sure because we're not going to dedicate much time to Pressbooks during that course. It's all about sort of alternative tools.
Pretty sure we're going to link to this stream and be like, if you want us to hear us talk about Pressbooks, we did.
Yeah, I also want to make sure we have some people there who are, you know, Pressbooks fans who are used to using it quite a bit. Ed, here, this is your open invitation. Make it to that stream or to make it to that community chat. And I'm going to try to round up a few different people who are doing this stuff at schools so they can talk about their experience.
I've completely and totally derailed us. I was only meaning to cover the dead air happening while we uploaded files, and now we're talking about something totally different. Let's go back to Pressbooks, guys.
This is how the streams work. So I've got a book here. It's on shared hosting. It's content rich. I've got an entire chapter of my
that's
cool
riveting
book.
stuff.
Yeah, it's
That's great.
So I can make a book, right? Not everything is going to work though, because we don't have some of the third-party dependencies. And it actually is nice if you go to the export page here, it's going to tell you what's not going to work. So it's going to say, hey, PDF, print PDF, EPUB, XHTML, OpenDoc, HTML book. None of those are going to work. What this means for you basically is on shared hosting, Pressbooks is not able to export into any, I'm going to call them offline formats, right? So it can export as WordPress XML and Pressbooks XML and common cartridges, which are all formats to go to some other system, right? Pressbooks XML would be to another Pressbooks site. WordPress XML would be to just take the content and bring it to another WordPress site. And common cartridge, LMS and LMS adjacent tools, basically. So those are options, but the other ones aren't going to work. But that being said, it's still a good option if the PDF export is not a vital, or EPUB export is not a vital part of your workflow, or maybe you have, maybe you're just wanting to grab copies of books to start working on them, like you want to clone a book, which is something you can do in Pressbooks. I have tested cloning books on shared hosting. It works fine. I can't say that I've comprehensively tested hundreds of books, but I have cloned like 10. So they seem to work fine. So that's kind of where our shared hosting journey ends. We have Pressbooks. It's here. Some things I would recommend if you're going to run shared Pressbooks on shared hosting, I would recommend installing a caching plugin like WP Supercache. That's just because Pressbooks and WordPress multisite are a little bit heavier. And so if your books get a lot of traffic, you don't want them to be slow. Caching plugins help with that immensely on shared hosting. So we do have an article on how to install caching plugins. If Pilot or Amanda, if you want to find that and link it, that would be awesome. So there we go. Now on cloud. So on cloud, we have Pressbooks ready to go. We actually have a caching plugin here too, just because Reclaim Cloud automatically deploys one as part of WordPress. Yeah, we have a basic setup here. If I go and make a book, and write a new chapter,
I just added the title of the doc as a banner. So link is in the chat, but if people want to search it, this is what you'd search.
Cool. So I have a chapter with just a chapter heading, I guess. And if I go read my book here, there we go. So if I try to export this, we're going to see something similar at the moment to shared hosting. Oh, this is my shared hosting Pressbooks. I need to close some tabs here. All right. So if I go back to the admin side and go to export, we're going to notice a lot of the same stuff is missing. So not all, though. They're actually Reclaim Cloud containers come with XML lint ready to go. And so these options for XHTML and HTML book are available. I don't actually know a lot about those formats. Maybe someone in the chat does. Like what you would do with them, I guess is what I'm saying. But they are here and technically an option. Now, we do, though, on Reclaim Cloud, have the ability to install other dependencies because we're in our own container and you have control over it. So if I go to my dashboard and go back to my add-ons here, just for the sake of instruction, I'm going to close it. The add-ons menu here, if I go to a particular node in Reclaim Cloud and go to add-ons, this is what I'm talking about. We have a new add-on called Install Pressbooks Dependencies. So if I hit install, it's going to say, hey, this is going to install EPUB check, Saxon, and Prince XML. It's going to install the non-commercial license free version of Prince XML. You should check out the end user license agreement to see if this is going to work for you and your use case in terms of, are you selling your book and stuff like that. I'm not going to read this license agreement. Well, obviously, we are not going to determine for you whether your use case fits this. So you should do that. And if you do need a license, you can buy one from Prince XML, and they have instructions on how to install it, which will work on Reclaim Cloud, just as written here. You basically just copy their license file to the right place.
Next week's stream will just be us reading the Prince XML EULA out loud.
Oh,
that's it. That's the whole thing.
Let's all just make like coffee and tea, and we'll do, 8th grade social studies style. We'll do popcorn reading of a license agreement.
I was thinking Prince XML ASMR.
Oh, God. Probably would put you to sleep.
That's true.
Yeah, right at 9 in the morning on Friday, or 10, I guess, your guys' time. So that's how the add-on works. It just works. It just installs all of those dependencies it mentioned, and it links back to this article that we are already looking at, just in case someone stumbled upon this. So now if I go back to my export and refresh, all of my options are available to me. And also, if I go to the bottom here, Pressbooks has this nice diagnostics page, and you can actually look through a bunch of different stuff. And here's the dependencies. Whoops. The dependencies. Okay. The dependencies section. Don't try to highlight text in here. It's going to be a bad time. EPUB check, XML lint, Prince XML, Saxon HE, all there. So now if I try and export my book, now there's nothing really in this book, right? But I can, let's grab digital PDF, EPUB. That's good for now. Those are kind of the main ones, I think, for most people. I could see OpenDoc.
I was going to say, OpenOffice is underappreciated.
Yeah, I mean, I use OpenOffice. I don't use it a lot, but it's the Office suite I have when I'm not using Google Docs. So, yeah. Okay, so PDF, EPUB, HTML book, right away. So I can hit download on these and check them out. When it decides to open, there we go. The free version of Prince XML does have a little watermark, only on the first page, which is, I think, really nice of them, honestly. Yeah, you've got your chapters, and it's a thing. It works. So that's how to do it on cloud. Really, if you're to sum these up, like, there's a lot of instructions here because I did want to be detailed. We've had folks ask us about this enough that I really wanted to make sure we had a detailed and a thorough yet easy to follow guide here. But really what we're talking about is we need a certain version of PHP and WordPress. We need to install and use those certain versions of PHP and WordPress. Then we need to install the 2 required themes and 1 required plugin. And then you have Pressbooks. If you need an exporting capabilities, you will want to do this on Reclaim Cloud, and then you can use that add-on to go to do that stuff. So I think I'm excited about this because this is a lot easier than the, I think, 4-ish hours that Amanda and I spent kind of figuring this out initially when we were just sort of, trying, how can we make this work? So in that aspect, I think that's already cool, right? But what I'm particularly excited about, and I know we've talked a lot in the last couple of weeks, if you've been to community chats and stuff and streams, about Reclaim Press, and Jim is really putting in a lot of time right now to make that a service that we can get up. I'm just gonna say soon, because I don't really even have a concept of like what is all necessary from like the infrastructure side of things. A lot of that's in place already, but we have a lot of other things to do. But running this on Reclaim Cloud is one thing and really cool, I think, and is pretty accessible. But I think we as a company are really excited about the possibilities of Reclaim Press being even easier to spin up WordPress sites and cheaper too. And so I think, I think this is going to be a pretty good option for folks who want to run, especially small Pressbook sites, and are okay with doing some, testing and on upgrades. Because that's the thing, is it's, you're gonna have to upgrade Pressbooks, and it has those requirements over time. But to get up and running with one and have all of the export functionality for, basically similar pricing to a shared hosting account, I think is going to be compelling for a lot of folks. And something I'm really excited about. And a lot of this work that I just did to make this work seamlessly on Reclaim Cloud, those add-ons that we've developed, those will be available in Reclaim Press as well. So you don't have to do command line work to do Prince XML. Yeah.
We have a question in the chat about HTTPS, which I can sort of answer for shared hosting. Stephen was wondering, when you're setting up, how do you make sure that it's on HTTPS? And for shared hosting, when you're installing an app, there's that little drop-down menu, and you pick the domain that you want, and you could pick a version with HTTPS.
Yep.
And the server is auto-generating certificates for your account in the background, so it should include that.
Technically, one will get issued whether or not you pick that. What that option does is it sets a redirect up to force loading over HTTPS. Now, I say that there are exceptions. So if for some reason, if your DNS is not managed by our name servers, that doesn't happen in the same way, kind of. For certain types of sites. In general, though, yes, it's completely automatic. And then the HTTPS option is what you want, because it will force loading over HTTPS, which on the modern web is what you probably should do.
Yeah.
On the cloud, it's just going to be over HTTPS. It's going, the WordPress standalone kit is automatically going to try and issue a Let's Encrypt certificate. If it can't, it'll load over normal HTTP. You might say, why couldn't it? When is that not an option? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. If you didn't map DNS correctly is when it couldn't. And that's basically the same as on shared hosting. So you don't have to, you can point a domain from another service. You don't have to use our name servers or our registrar, but there are cases where it doesn't work that are not interesting or worthwhile getting into right now, because for 98% of people, it will just work.
Okay.
And if it doesn't, you can definitely put a ticket in. We'll look at it.
Also, a different throwback in the chat. We were talking earlier about like what HTML export, what XHTML export and HTML book are about. And Ed's got our back. XHTML is the export that is the basis for all the other exports, and it's just plain HTML. So you can use it for a lot of stuff.
Oh.
And then HTML book is an older thing that was meant for cross-compatibility and exportability, but people weren't really using that standard. So it's still there, but it's not very used.
Yeah. And the HTML book thing is really interesting, because there's a lot you could do with that. Like theoretically, depending on your authoring needs, you could use Pressbooks as just like an authoring tool, and then like shut your Pressbooks site down when you're not using it to author, and then just host the PDF and EPUB and HTML book on Domain of One's Own shared hosting, right? Like
HTML book or XHTML?
Which is the one that was static HTML? I think HTML book.
XHTML is static HTML.
Okay.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, you could think of Pressbooks as sort of like a authoring suite that you run and then turn off
for just
in the
generating
cloud
things
when you're not using it. I've never seen anyone do it that way. And you would lose, the ability for folks to clone your book and stuff like that. But I don't know, you could do that. So
Pressbooks is awesome for authoring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what a lot of what you used it for, Amanda, right?
Yeah.
Apparently, one of the original versions of Pressbooks had an export so that you could export it and then pull it into Adobe and finish it in InDesign.
InDesign, huh? Man, yeah. In a past life, I did some Mac administration work, and I had to support Adobe on Macs. And I will say, and I'm talking from that and talking to other people who did more in-depth versions of that work, InDesign's file format is weird and like breaks with every major version. In my experience, like you can't open an old InDesign doc in a newer version without upgrading the file. And then like say you've got InDesign 2019 and I've got InDesign 2020, we essentially can't collaborate.
Great.
So that must have been not a lot of fun for them to support, if I had to guess.
That's InDesign for you.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of love for InDesign in particular.
It makes pretty things.
What'd you say?
It makes pretty things. But
yeah, well, it can. Not if I use it. But
it wouldn't be an InDesign file, apparently. Huh.
Oh, it wouldn't be. Okay, maybe it's using some open format then. Gotcha.
Okay.
Ready for import. Yeah, like SVG or, well, that'd be more Illustrator. I don't know that much about desktop publishing. So I'm going to stop speculating on it.
I do remember that you had that, it's not open, but it is that Affinity Adobe.
Yeah.
It's an Adobe alternative. That's the Affinity suite.
Yes, and Affinity, I have the 3 apps from them. Photo is their Photoshop alternative, and I really like that one. Designer is their Illustrator alternative, and it's possibly good, but I just don't use it. And Publisher is their InDesign alternative, and again, it might be good, but I don't use it. And you can buy them in a bundle for like, they go on sale frequently, and they're one-time license fee per major version. So I bought version 2 this year actually, and I had version 1 for like 7 years, and I paid like $100 for it. So it was very much worth the money. It's not going to do everything the Adobe suite does, obviously. Like Adobe is constantly updating their stuff. They have like generative AI features now. I don't think Affinity will be fast to incorporate those because their business model doesn't really allow for that type of iteration. They're not the same size company, etc. But it is really good for someone like me who needs to edit a photo like once a month.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate Pilot and Amanda. I appreciate you both joining me here, and I appreciate everyone that tuned in and asked questions. This is the whole point, is to make these better. So thanks. Check out the doc. Send me feedback if you find things that are wrong or just like typos, I guess, because I'm not a great writer. Yeah, and hopefully this is helpful. I'm really excited about this option because we get asked about Pressbooks all the time, and up to now our answer was sort of like, we have this installer, and if you don't want to pay for that, I don't know. So hopefully this is helpful for people.
Yeah. We had a great chat today. But
thanks for the chat, everyone.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for letting me crash your party, Taylor and Amanda.
Oh yeah, no problem.